Happy Thursday. I'm Allegra, and welcome to my live broadcast. If you are listening to the recording, then you are listening to the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, and thank you for joining. And whether you are live or listening to the recording, I do read the comments. So if you have a question or something, I am happy to answer it if it's applicable to what we're talking about today. So if you've been listening for a while, then you know that I am about a month in to what I am calling a season of self-care. And the reason that I started this season, if you will, is because life is a lot right now. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to produce anxiety and exhaustion. And I know that I've had some nightmares because of what's been going on. And, I once heard a mom say that when she found out her child was diagnosed with cancer, she knew she had to be pristine with how she ate, how she slept, how she exercised, because she needed to be able to show up 100% as the person she wanted to be for her kiddo. And I am really leaning into my self-care because I know that it's what keeps me on this side of being mentally healthy and not sinking into any sort of, depressive or low energy state that is just not where you need to be when you are defending the realm. So, self-care. I just completed 5 weeks of talking about skincare, which, gives new meaning to the song I Touch Myself, but it releases the same great brain chemicals that are released when you get a hug, and it really leaves me feeling nurtured first thing in the morning. And today, I am beginning the, unit, if you will, on things that I put in my mouth. So, things I drink, things I eat, supplements I take, and today I'm talking about my AM hydration ritual. So this is the first thing I do in the morning, and I've been doing it for years in some way, shape, or form. If you've looked at my Instagram, you'll see different iterations of it, but it's basically the same. It's just the exact ingredients will sometimes change, as I will talk about. However, before I get into that, I am going to do the usual thing I do when I am starting off a podcast, which is I have been super excited to add a whole bunch of new countries to my listenership. I am now heard in over 90 countries. Oh my gosh. And it's interesting because the top positions have been changing quite a bit recently. I mean, US is always number one. Thank you to my homeland. I see you. I know who we really are. And I keep that image in my head every day. However, the other spots have been jostling around, and recently a country that has really popped up is Chile. And so, a few interesting facts about Chile, a country I've never been to. Chile is the longest country in the world, perhaps not surprisingly, because if you've seen it on the map, you see how it stretches. From north to south, it's 2,653 miles. So, I guess a little bit shorter than the US side to side, but very long. And it is the world's 5th largest wine exporter with over 100 wineries. Very interesting. And Monteverde is the oldest known site of human habitation in the Americas, going back to 16,500 before the Common Era. Very interesting. Okay, and I like to pull a card from this little deck because it always gives me something inspiring to think about. I never look at it in advance, so it's always a surprise to me. Delight in the little things. Rudyard Kipling. Not Kipling, Kipling. Rudyard Kipling, author. I know who this one is. He wrote those incredible stories. Delight in the little things. Thank you, Rudyard. I think I do a really good job of this. Just a little story I'll tell about that. My husband and I were in our first year of marriage, or maybe we weren't even married. Maybe we were only engaged. And we were carving pumpkins for Halloween. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you having as much fun as I am having right now?" And he said, I think so. And I said, "Okay, good. Because I think we're going to make it if we can have this much fun just carving pumpkins. So I definitely try and find delight in the little things all the time. And as always, I'd like to tell you about a book I'm reading. And the book I'm reading right now is especially useful for parents. And it is called Hold On to Hold Your Kids, Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Newfield. Hold On to Your Kids. Why parents need to matter more than peers. As someone with a teenager, and especially because my teen was homeschooled until a year and a half ago, I've definitely seen a huge difference in how we interact because she is now away from me so much of the day. And so I find the tips in this book really helpful in terms of helping to re-engage that relationship in the time we are together. And he calls it collecting your child. He says you need to collect your child after times apart, and he includes sleeping as a time apart. And what I like about his using the word collecting is that he says, there's a difference between collecting your child and parenting your child. Parenting is all of the instruction and guidance that feels like it's coming out of my mouth 24/7. And collecting is about finding moments to just see your child and remind them that they are important to you. And it's a slow start, I'll tell you that. The first 30% of the book is slow. Maybe you want to fast forward it, start listening around 30% in, and then go back, because it was a little hard to get through. I had to really believe that there was going to be something good for me. But after about 30%, it's been great. Lots of tips. And what I like to do, just a tip for you, is I do a lot of listening to audiobooks. And what I do is when I'm listening to the audiobook, if the author says something that I want to note, I will touch the little flag icon, and then I will go back and I will look at all the flag moments and I will listen to them, and I'll make notes in my planner so that I can capture that learning, because writing things down really helps to get it into your brain. And so that's an easy way for me to go back and reference, wait, what was that great tip that I learned in that book? So I'll put the book in the show notes. And yeah, so let's move on to today's topic. This is my 3-step hydration hit ritual. If you want the details, just click on this QR code. If you are listening to the podcast, then you're going to go to subscribepage.com. That's all one word, subscribepage.com/3steps, all spelled out, THREESTEPS, or click this QR code. And this is what I'm talking about today. So if you have watched my morning ritual podcast, or if you have read my book, Rock Your Morning, by the way, I am an author. I'll find these on my website, bywdreams.com. But Rock Your Morning, if you've read my book, Rock Your Morning, then you know that first thing in the morning, I have this morning ritual that takes about 2 hours, but that's because dropping off my daughter is in between parts of it. And I drive my daughter half the time to week. My husband drives her the other half. So my morning ritual slightly changes depending on if I'm driving or not. So if I'm not driving my daughter, then really it's about an hour-long morning ritual. And if I'm driving her, then it's a 2-hour. And the very first thing I do is get up and go to the bathroom, because don't we all have to go to the bathroom? I do a few things in there, but then I go to the kitchen and I immediately put the kettle on for water. And I do some other things as the water is boiling, which again, watch my AM ritual podcast. I'll try and remember to put it in the show notes. But once my water has boiled, then I make 3 drinks, and I make them kind of all at the same time. So the first drink I make is just warm water with lemon. So the water boils or almost boils, and almost boiling is because I also make a tea, and you're not supposed to use boiling water. You're supposed to use just before boiling. So I take the just before boiling water, I pour some in a mug, I add a little cool water so that it's just warm. I squeeze an entire lemon if it's a small one. If it's a big lemon, I'll just do half. I squeeze that in there, and then I drink that down. And I don't drink it super fast or super slow, but the great thing about that is that lemon, even though it's an acid, it's actually has a pH level that is surprising in terms of what it does to your gut. So it actually helps to, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the term right now. I want to say ionize. If one of you watching me wants to supply me with the correct word, that would be great. I'll think of it in a second. But lemons have a even though it's acidic, apparently it creates an alkaline digestive effect. So lemon juice itself is acidic, but in the digestion process, it creates an alkaline environment. And all I know is that having warm lemon water makes me very regular in the morning. And it's just a nice sort of gentle way to ease into the day. So that's the first thing I have. And really, that's pretty much the only thing I have until I've completed the rest of my morning ritual, because part of my morning ritual is walking my dog. And so I don't really have anything else until after I've walked my dog. Okay. However, in the morning, I make my lemon water. I also add the almost boiled water to about a teaspoon of matcha powder. Matcha is green tea, but it's green tea that's pulverized into a powder. And there might be something else that distinguishes matcha from regular green tea. I don't know, but I do know it's green tea that's pulverized into a powder. And the benefit of it being in the powder form is that when you drink it, you're actually ingesting the entire plant rather than just the infusion, which is what you're getting from normal tea. The other thing that's in here, I don't know if you can see, it's because it's a little bit different color, is I also put in a little bit of hibiscus leaves, maybe about a tablespoon, dried hibiscus leaves. And again, if you go to this QR code, I tell you where I get everything and how much I use. And so that's what's in here. This is my infusion of matcha and hibiscus. And when I get to the bottom, I'm just going to drink down a little bit more of this. As it gets lower, I will swirl it around so that I can ingest all of the matcha powder, and I will chew on and eat the hibiscus leaves. And it doesn't really have much flavor, honestly. I guess the matcha is kind of smoky, and the hibiscus is a little bit tart, but not as tart as one thinks. But hibiscus has wonderful polyphenols in it. And actually, the reason why I added this drink to my morning ritual is because of a book written by this guy, Dr. Michael Greger. It's the book called How Not to Die. This is the cookbook. I don't actually have the physical book of How Not to Die, but I do have the cookbook. How Not to Die is a wonderful book. Again, I'll try to remember to put in my show notes. I've done a whole review of it in an earlier podcast. But it's not about how to live forever. He doesn't want to turn you into a vampire. No, what it's about is how not to die from high blood pressure, how not to die from cholesterol. So each chapter is a different topic. And he highly recommends green tea matcha. I think he says green tea, but I took it to another level with the matcha. And then I think he talks about hibiscus as well. I don't remember if he does green tea and hibiscus together, but so that is the second drink I make every morning. So first the lemon water, then the matcha, green tea, hibiscus. And at this point, it's cold, but this is how I drink it. I just kind of sip on it through the morning. Then I make my third drink, which is by far the most elaborate. And really, it's a meal. So this is what I eat first thing. This is the first, real food that goes into my stomach. And I eat it right around now, right around 10 o'clock, because this is usually when I'm done with, I've taken my kid to school, I've walked my dog. This is usually when I'm hungry, is after I've walked my dog. And I do try to wait to eat until I'm hungry. And not starving or anything, I air quotes on the starving there. But I like to wait until I'm a little bit hungry, and I definitely like to wait until I've used the restroom because, digestion takes a lot of energy, and it kind of pulls energy away from elimination. And so I want to get some elimination done first thing in the morning before I start putting my body into digestion mode. So First thing in the morning, I make the lemon water, I make the matcha hibiscus green tea, and I soak 2.5 tablespoons of chia seeds in water. And this was also a tip. So this is the newest aspect. I always had the lemon water. I always had some sort of tea infusion, and I always had some protein shake. Those have always been in my lineup. However, the chia seeds I've only been doing for almost 2 years now. And if you saw my podcast episode on 3 little changes I made that really reduced my cholesterol in a crazy way, and also, I removed 10 pounds from my body, chia seeds is definitely one of the things that I chalk up to that. And the reason why was that, and again, this is from the How Not to Die book. Dr. Greger talked about, I think it was in that book. He has 3 books that are all very similar. I've read them all. I highly recommend you read them all. So I'm not sure which of his books he says it in, but he talks about how they did a study where they had 2 groups eating the exact same foods. The only difference was how much fiber one group was getting. So one group was getting much more fiber. And I think if I remember correctly, it was around 35 grams of fiber a day. And in the book, he also mentions that some scientists hypothesize that early humans might have been eating as many as 100 grams of fiber, partially just because food was harder to find and you wanted to fill yourself up. And, it's kind of something to do, just like to chew on things. I mean, we all see, just cows and horses out there chewing on grass in the field. If you're just ingesting grass, it's not super high nutrition for humans because of how our stomachs are shaped versus herbivores. But they hypothesized that we were getting a lot more fiber. So I did a quick math because I thought I was getting a lot of fiber because I do eat a lot of vegetables and sweet potatoes and all that sort of thing. However, although at one point in my life I was vegetarian, since having my child, I have no longer been vegetarian. And I kind of had gotten out of the habit of eating as many beans and legumes as I was eating when I was a vegetarian. And so his book really planted in my head the importance of getting more fiber in. And really the best way to do that are chia seeds and beans and legumes. I thought kale and bell peppers and all those things, I thought that was getting a lot of fiber in my diet. It was not getting enough. I was probably getting around 20, 25 grams. And so to bounce it up to the 30, 35 realm, the chia seeds, 2.5 tablespoons, it adds like 10 grams of fiber, just like that, right? So this little shake has about 10 grams of fiber in it just from the chia seeds. And that's why it keeps me full for so long, because of all that fiber. So I make the lemon water, I make this matcha hibiscus infusion, and I soak the chia seeds. And you have to soak the chia seeds. Do not, I repeat, do not try and take a spoonful of dry chia seeds. If you've ever added water to chia seeds, you will see how they clump together and they develop a sort of gelatin. However, if you put them in all at once, they clump together and the gelatin only gets on the outside. And inside, those chia seeds are dry. And that's how it will go into your stomach. I actually had a friend who, not based on my recommendation, but had tried chia seeds. And she was like, no chia seeds for me. And I was like, what do you mean no chia? She's like, I tried them. I took a spoonful dry with some water. I was like, you did what? So all I could imagine was this swelling ball of chia seeds working its way down her digestive system. That must have been so, so painful, because this right here is, I don't know, 4 cups of water, 3 cups of water, 3 cups of water maybe. And the chia seeds are like evenly dispersed in this. You need a lot of water to be able to get down 2.5 tablespoons of chia seeds. Okay. So once I'm done walking my dog, I will then come home and I will take my blender. I will add about half a cup of water, and I add 2 to 3 leaves of kale, depending on how big they are, and 3 to 5 stems of cilantro. Cilantro is a really great way to, they call it chelate, to help remove heavy metals from your body. And this was a big concern of mine because I ate a lot of tuna in my life. And so cilantro and kale, both have lots of benefits in them. You could, if you don't like the taste of cilantro, I know there's some of you who it tastes like soap for you. I'm so sorry because I love it so much. But hey, all the herbs are good in some way. So throw parsley in there if you prefer parsley, or if you like, God, there's that one herb that I really dislike. I can't even think of its name, but some people really like it. It's the one that has, oh, I'm blanking on it. Anyway, look, research the different green herbs and the benefits of them. It starts with a T, if you can think of the name. Research the benefits and then decide on what herb you want to use. But I use cilantro, and so I puree those, and then I add in, this is my protein powder mix. I've tried different protein powders. However, I like very specific things in my protein mix. And so this one I started using about a year and a half ago, Keto Cream Protein Shake. Again, this will all be, if you click on this 3 steps or go to subscribepage.com/3 steps, you will get the exact name and the website. I like this one because one, it is vegan. So if you're vegan, and it also has a lot of great seeds in it. It has sunflower seed, pumpkin seed, watermelon seed, which are all really, really good for you. Seeds are amazing nutrition. And the sweetener is 100% monk fruit, no erythritol. And because I find that like erythritol and those types of, artificial sweeteners, that are healthier than some of the other artificial sweeteners, I find that those leave me bloated. So this one, the only sweetener is the monk fruit, which is fantastic. So because of it has those ingredients, I really like it. It also has pomegranate in it and a whole bunch of greens, barley grass, collards grass, alfalfa grass, wheatgrass. So because of all those extra ingredients in it, that's why I like this one, because it means I don't have to mix all those in. However, I still mix other stuff in. And again, this is why you might want to get this, because there's a lot of things. Okay. So first of all, I put in a serving of creatinine. By the way, what I do is when I get this, I get one of these once a month. I have a large empty container like this, and I will put half of this in there, and then I will mix in all these other things into it so that every day when it comes to make my smoothie, all I have to do is scoop out from one container. I don't have to do all of these steps. Okay? So these are all the things I add to that smoothie in an empty container. One thing I add is collagen. Another thing is creatinine. So collagen is for, and by the way, this is not vegan. This is grass-fed, pasture-raised. You could also go with seafood collagen. And you want, this one has 5 types of collagen and 18 amino acids. And I get all of these other ingredients at VitaCost, which again, that'll be in the thing if you click here. So I add a scoop of collagen. This is good just for more protein, and also to get some of the, hair and skin and nail benefits of collagen. I was an anthropology major in undergrad, and when we would talk about early human diets, we would talk about how they would crack open that bone and suck out the marrow because they just needed those calories and that fat. And, we discard a lot of parts of our food chain, right? Like we get rid of the fiber, we get rid of the collagen. And so if you are not sucking on bones, you might not be getting as much collagen as you need. And I definitely seen a benefit in terms of my skin not being as dry. So there we go. Creatinine, this helps with muscle strength and energy production. As we age, it is more work to keep your muscle tone, and it's so important to have it. So creatinine. I also add maca. This brand, unfortunately, is no longer available at the place that I said I get all my stuff. I've had to switch brands, but I'm just showing you this one. I just recently had to make my smoothie mix, which is why a lot of these are empty. But so maca is really good also for energy. I also put in camu camu, which is a food-based source of vitamin C. And there's also another vitamin C source that I sometimes use, which is an Indian fruit. And I guess I ran out of that one. I only have this one here. I have to look at the name of that, and I'll add it to this thing so that it's there. And then I also add a mix of flaxseed meal and wheat germ. So what I do is I mix the two together in here for my everyday use. But like I said, I mix them into the protein mix so that's all I have to do. And then once it's all blended up, I add it into the chia seeds. Oh, sorry, one other thing. Spirulina. Oh, it's in the fridge. That's why it's got this intense green color, almost borders on blue, because I do add spirulina into my smoothie mix. And so that's the entire mix. And then it looks like this. And I then, before I drink it, I like to add 3 other things. I like to add some hemp hearts. Again, I am pretty much eating seeds and nuts all day long. They are great sources of all sorts of things. I add some pumpkin seeds. And lastly, I add some cacao nibs. And the reason I do this is because it keeps it interesting for me. I don't like the feeling of just drinking my food. And so having those add some chewing to the process. And so then I just sip on this. It takes me a little while to eat this all because it is quite filling. And I forgot to mention that this is chocolate flavored. I do get the chocolate flavored one because I just feel like it helps to cover all the other flavors that I add in. And also, cacao is a really great nutrient for you as well. So, what does it taste like? I wouldn't say it's not sweet. I wouldn't say it's sweet. I'm sure the shake mix is a lot sweeter without all the things I add to it, especially because the spirulina and the camu camu have very sharp flavors, but it tastes very neutral to me. And, I kind of just, I don't know. My morning is the one place where I really don't think about taste. I want to make sure I'm not starting my day with sugar. And so this is a great way to make sure that you're starting with a lot of nutrients, a lot of fiber. It's very satiating and satisfying for hours. And it kind of tastes like nothing, honestly. And then I get the crunch from the pumpkin seeds and the cacao. And so that is my 3-step AM ritual to ensuring that I am hydrated and fed. And it really takes care of me until 12 or 1 or even 2. And that's when I will have a salad. It's a very satisfying meal. And the other great thing about having this ritual is that, like all habits, it saves me time and energy. It literally clears up space in my head because I don't have to think, what am I going to eat today? And I actually only drink this. I only do this ritual Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday is when I let myself have fun. I don't drink coffee Monday through Friday, hardly ever. Unless I'm meeting a friend for coffee, I don't drink coffee. I consider coffee like a treat. And so I do that on Saturday and Sunday. I literally don't do any of this Monday through Friday. I mean, on Saturday and Sunday. Not the smoothie, not the lemon water, not the tea. And I really just find that as long as you're doing things, quote unquote, the right way, as in the way that you feel like best serves you, as long as you're doing that 70% of the time, it's okay to play around with the other 30%. So I'm probably doing slightly more than 70% because I'm doing it 5 days a week. But on Saturday and Sunday, I am known to make pancakes that are essentially unhealthy. I do sneak in a little bit of wheat germ and flaxseed into the mix. But other than that, it's a typical pancake mix. And I also do put berries on it. But we use butter, we use maple syrup, we use refined flour. It is spelt flour. But you could not tell the difference, honestly. They are indulgent pancakes. And yeah, but Monday through Friday, my 3-step AM ritual is how I eliminate overthinking. What do I need to eat to be healthy? I've already put the thought into it by putting it together. Every morning, I just have to execute, and it saves me a load of time. So thank you so much for joining me today. Scan the QR code if you want to get this exact recipes of what I put together. Or if you're listening to the podcast, go to subscribepage.com/3steps, all one word. And thank you for joining me. Next week, I am going to talk about how I eat repetitively in the rest of the day. For lunch, it's pretty much salads. And for dinner, I have a rotation of meals that I make for our family that we all know we like and, are healthy enough and make it easy for me to not expend a lot of time and energy reinventing the wheel every time I have to cook. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember, planning makes everything easier. Bye.